You see, I'd stopped the music and I'm thinking, hang on a minute, it's still playing. How is that possible? Because I was going to try something else, some different music that was going to play for you tonight from Dee and Nick Nimin's channel called Creator Mix, and you can get their music free of charge and play it on your live streams without any copyright strikes and all that kind of stuff. Just give them the credit. Creatormix.com, you will find that. But anyway, good evening and a very warm welcome to the show. My name is Paul Webber. Great to have you along today, tonight, this afternoon, this evening, whatever time of day it is, wherever you are. Do hope you can enjoy the show. It's all about EQ and miking up tonight and setting those different parameters that you can do on each of the microphones. Got 3 microphones to test tonight, so it should be quite good fun. If you're on board with that, let's get cracking, shall we? Love Audio. All right, so what I'll also be doing is showing you the overhead shot of the EQ. If I go to my mic settings, which is channel 6, like that, and then go to there, so you can see the details going on here. So what I've done is, if you can hear the difference, what I've done is taken off some of the bottom ends. This is called a low cut, and it's got a button on the desk itself that says low cut. I'm going to move this over so you can see it's just about there. So that's the low cut section there, right? So if I take that off, all of a sudden you've got so much more bass coming through the bottom end, okay? Now that's okay, it's fine if that's how you want the sound to be. However, you do get a lot of plosives with bottom end. Do you see what I mean? So when you say the bottom end and plosives, you get all that kind of popping stuff going on with the lower end. So what I do is put the low cut feature on. That shows that yellow section at the bottom of the wave file there on the screen. You can see that. And you can adjust that. You can dial that in or out. So you can move that along so it's really, really tinny. So that gets rid of almost all of the frequencies up as far as 400 hertz. And then you can drop that down to about 40 hertz. Between 40 and 60 hertz is where you want to be dropping that down to. Any lower than that, and you're going to get that kind of bass rumble. And the idea is that when you're miking up these, let's say, for instance, you were miking up a band or a group of singers or instruments or all that kind of thing, what you're looking for in the final mix is plenty of headroom. So the more you give the low end chance to kind of roll off, if you will, the more headroom you're going to have when it comes to your final mix. So if you roll off the low end on each of your microphone settings, and even on the instruments as well, depending on which kind of instrument it is. If you want plenty of bottom end, of course, then like a bass guitar, then you might want to leave that on. But in order to give yourself plenty of headroom at that final mix, what you want to do is roll off the low end. So that's the low cut on that side. You can hear that my voice is kind of is quite trebly, if you will. So that's the top end. And what I've done there is boosted that. Okay, so what we'll do is go to the high end on the desk here. Let me just go to the overhead camera as well. You'll see what I'm doing here. So on this section here, this is your kind of equalizer, your graphic EQ, if you will. And it's in this form, because this is the sort of form that it used to take when each of these old analog mixing desks used to have bass, mid, upper mid, low mid, high frequencies, all that kind of stuff, and then the effects and all that kind of stuff in one column. Nowadays, this particular digital mixer, the Behringer X32, gives it to you in this section here. So each channel has control over all of the EQ. So what I'm going to do is go over to this side. You'll see me adjusting this now. So this is the high frequency, and okay, if we move that across like that, you can see that when I do that right into the section there, that's a lot of top end, and it's going into the mid frequencies as well. So it goes right across. So what I tend to do is just keep it to that end, and you can even adjust that to bring it down. And if you wanted to, let's say for instance, you've got a very person who's got a very sibilous voice and they've got lots of T's and S's and they sound like this, then what you can do is roll that off. So that then takes off the top end, so it's not quite so sharp. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it's like almost like it acts like a de-esser. So, you know, there's a lot of software and kind of plugins and things called de-essers. And what that does is literally takes off that S like that. So yeah, you drop it down to there, and it's a bit fuzzy and it sounds really muddy. So what I tend to do is bring my voice up just a touch there like that. And on that particular microphone, that sounds really good. This is the Tascam TM80 mic, which I'm using right now, by the way. So if I turn this around and do that, you can see this is the microphone that I'm using. It's got a windshield on it, and I need to get a pop shield. I'm going to order some more. I used to have a round pop shield that goes in front of each of the mics, so I'm going to order 3 of those because they do tend to wear out quite quickly, and they clip onto the mic stand, and then it gives you more protection against that P and S and the F going across the diaphragm and making that noise that you hear called a plosive. So that's the idea of one of these kind of shields. If this was off, by the way, so if I'm talking into the microphone like that without the pop shield on it, you can hear you can hear that kind of wind going across the diaphragm. So that's why we get this kind of gauze thing in front, and you need to be about this distance away, so about finger and thumb away from the microphone itself. So then when you're talking, you're not directly on top of it like that. And, you know, you'll see some singers go, oh, yeah, and like kind of lean into it and everything else. And that's great. But you're going to get plosives and you're going to get different noises and all sorts of stuff like that. So, yeah, get yourself a windshield. This is great as an instant kind of first kind of barrier, if you will. There we go, like that. I've got different colours, but I can't remember me for the life of me where I've left them. They've got to be here somewhere or somewhere else in storage, but you get the idea. So this goes in front, and then what the gauze will do at the front there is just give you extra protection against that that plosive sound that you get. All right, so that's mic number 1. And what I'm going to do is mute this particular mic, which is here, and then I'll bring a really cheap microphone into shot, and we'll try and do some EQ on that to make it sound a bit better. You know, there's a phrase that says you can't polish a turd. Well, I think we're going to have that in the next segment. So stay tuned for that. Give me 2 secs. Hang on. And whilst we do that, I'm going to play some of the Creator Mix background music. So give me 2 seconds while I roll that up. So here we go. This is it, and it starts. There we go. Right. There we go. Bring that up. Okay, so this is part of a playlist called Soul. Let me show you the desktop, and you'll be able to see that. So this is on creatormix.com. Really, really good songs, good quality music as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do is mute the current microphone, which is the Tascam TM80. I'm going to bring in this cheap one that I was talking about. 2 secs. You can already hear the quality is going to be really good, don't you? Do you know what I mean? So hang on a sec. Here we go. All right. So this is like a 20-30 quid microphone, and it's shaped like one of those old-fashioned kind of 50s mics that the old crooners used to hold like that, and then kind of lean into it and do a bit of Elvis and all that kind of stuff. And you know, if you've got no other microphone and this is the only one you've got, then yeah, it'll get by. You can do stuff with it. I've already put some EQ on it. Let me just go to that page there. And what you'll see is there's a lump taken out. Let me just go to NDI shot a minute for you. And it picks up every single sound of the mic stand. It's just incredible. Hang on. Let me go to that screen there. There we go. So what you can see, shush, that's the cable rattling against the mic stand. It's terrible, isn't it? So what you can see is the curve. What I've done is I've done a lot of lower end, so I can take that off if you want. So we've got now a lot more bass in there, okay? And we can adjust the parameters of the bass as well. We can bring that in if we need to, which is the low end. But also on the EQ, what you can do is you can kind of move these waves around. So what you do is you look for the frequency that you don't particularly like. So let's say, for instance, it's that one, okay? And we're going to narrow the beam of that. So we're narrowing the Q, as it were. Hang on. Where are we? Come on, narrow the Q for me. Sorry, I'm turning the wrong thing. Hang on a second. Sorry. I'm turning the wrong thing. There we go. Okay. So you get to there, let's say. Okay. And then what you do is you narrow that particular Q, and you go up and down the dial until you find the frequency that you don't like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's that one there, around about, I would say, the 150 hertz mark. Okay, you can hear that, how awful that is. All right. So what I'm going to do is then cut that out. Okay. So you've seen that, how we find that. We kind of do this back and forward movement until we find that nasty sounding section there in 150 hertz roughly, and then you just drop it down. So what we do is we go to this section here and we lower that particular sound, and what a difference that makes. It just sounds like a nice microphone now, to be fair. You've still got a little bit of pop because this doesn't have a pop shield on it. Let me go back to the main cam. Yeah, it doesn't have a pop shield on it, so every P and every F that goes over the diaphragm, you're going to hear. But what a difference that makes just by dialing in a bit of EQ and dropping out that particular frequency that didn't sound nice. It was very kind of hollow, very boxy. And, you know, like I say, if this was the only mic that you had in your collection, then you could easily do a live stream. What you need to do, this is not a condenser mic, this is a dynamic mic. So what you need to do is to get closer to it. I mean, if I'm back here, shush. If I'm back here, that was the cable rattling against the mic stand. If I'm back here, then you can still hear what I'm saying, and it's got volume on it because I've put a compressor on it, which will lift the quiet bits and kind of squash the loud bits. But it's a bit in the distance. So what you need to do is get a bit closer, and then you get that better sound picking up from the pickup, okay, from the diaphragm that's inside the mic. And like I say, this is it's cheap. It's like 20, 30 quid, if that. And I used to sell these in the shop down at Saltash, and you know, 1 or 2 sold. I wouldn't say it was a big seller, not compared to the similar one to the SM58 that I used to sell from Shure. But you know, it's a gimmick. It looks good on stage. It's not offensive in any way. Let me just move my other microphone out of the way. You can see it better. Hang on, 2 seconds. Let me just mute that. So I'll bring it into central shot now. So this is me pretty much on top of the thing. I don't have a windshield big enough to go over this thing. It's quite a chunky little mic, but it's on this stand, and it just, because it's cheap, it picks up every single sound that the stand is making. And if I do this on the floor, you can hear that. I've got a gate across it. If I turn the gate off, okay, you can probably hear the fan from my mixing desk and the fan from the laptop, because the laptop's working really hard. Yeah, well, do you know what? It's not too bad, to be fair, but I think that's because we've rolled off some of that low frequency. Let me just go back to the NDI shot again. You'll see that. So what we've done on this graph here, we've rolled off the low end. We've dipped out one of the frequencies that we didn't like. And there's also another one there that I picked up this afternoon when I was testing this and dropped that out as well. It's interesting. Let's see if we can find that. So it's number 2 on the low mid. So you've got low, you've got the low cut here, which is that. You've got the low mid. Low mid, high mid, and then high, okay? So I think we're looking at number 2, which is the low mid, okay? And which is, let's have a look, low mid is there. So again, we can move this around until we find that frequency, but it was about there. And if I raise that up again, you can hear that that's where that frequency was. It didn't start like that. It started off at 0, obviously, but I still found it a bit offensive. So what I did was find the frequency itself, narrow that band so it's there. So you see that kind of opening up and then closing again. That's the kind of narrowing of the Q, you call it. And then you narrow that down to roughly where the frequency is. And then, because you can hear that ringing. Can you hear that? And I haven't even got any speakers on. It sounds like it's feedback, but it's not. So what I do then is drop it down until it goes below, and then it takes out all that frequency. And then you then end up with a fairly decent sound, to be honest with you. So that's EQ on that. I haven't put any top end on this one. So we're going to go across there now to the high, which is section 4 on this little graph here. Okay, and we're looking at that number there. So if I move that around, you can see that moving back and forward in the screen. Okay. And what I'm going to do is raise it. So we're going to give ourselves some tinny stuff, some top end, okay? And in actual fact, we're making a cheap microphone sound pretty decent, apart from the rattling noise of the mic stand. So you can dial in different frequencies like this, and actually, that's going right across there. That's actually ridiculous, but it sounds a bit more kind of radio. But we're looking at this top end, these frequencies up around the kind of between 5K and 10K, so it's really high as regards hertz. That's hertz, by the way. So that's between 5 kilohertz and 10 kilohertz. And then you find that identification, and then you can raise it if you want to, make it even higher, which is very, very crispy. And so I'll probably look at about halfway there, just above that. And like I said to you before, this is kind of it's polishing a turd, to be honest with you. So it's a cheap mic, but we've made it sound like an expensive mic. And if I was doing a voiceover, for instance, for a client, and it was the other microphones were broken, for instance, or I didn't have anything with me, that could just about get me by. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but if it is the only mic you have, you dial in some decent EQ on this microphone, and it starts to sound a bit decent. You'll never get rid of that kind of wind noise unless you put a diaphragm in front of you like that and then kind of take a step back. And so, for instance, because you're going to be giving some energy when you're doing this voiceover. So the idea is to kind of step back a bit and then raise your voice a bit more. Peter Piper picked a piece of pickle pepper. You can hear the P's and the F's going past the diaphragm. Now, the way to get around that, of course, is to speak past it. But then you kind of get the room noise as well. So if you've got a room that's treated, like with some acoustic tiles, 2 secs. Sorry for the noise on that, by the way. So, if you've got some acoustic... Oh, my God. I just stepped on my headphone cable. Where are we? Oh, this is this microphone. So if you've got some acoustic tiles like this, these have been ripped off a wall, by the way. That's why they've got kind of glue still on the back. But, so this kind of thing, if that's in a studio... and you've got that around you and you're talking to the side of the microphone, Peter Piper picked a piece of pickled pepper, you're not getting as much as the P's and the F's that you used to do unless you're right in front of it like that. So, that could work as well. So you talk past it as opposed to into it to get rid of those plosives, okay? So that's another trick you can have. These are fairly cheap. You can buy them in packs of 10 or 12 or whatever. And, that you can have different patterns on the wall like that. Hang on. Where are we? Yeah, like that sort of thing. And you can even get them in different colours as well. So if you've got a colour scheme in your studio that you want to kind of keep in keeping with, then you can buy them in different shades and all that kind of stuff, which looks really cool. All right. I forget which microphone I've used. Right, okay. So this is my usual studio microphone, which I do like, and I like the sound of it and everything else. Right, so I'm going to mute this one again, and we're going to bring in another one, which is just here. This has been given to me donated to me by a friend of mine who wanted me to test it through the system tonight. So thanks very much indeed, Brad, if you're watching. Brad Hall Productions. He does a lot of graphic design, DJ work, that kind of stuff, and lives in a village quite close by. So yeah, thanks very much indeed, Brad, for that. I'm going to bring it in now and test it, so I'll mute this one. I'll play a little bit more Creator Mix music for you whilst we do that. 2 secs. Let's play this one for you. And I'll mute this microphone and then go over to the next one. Here we go. Taking care not to clonk it on the ceiling. Okay, so this is a completely different mic, as you can tell. This is a Studio Spares microphone. It's a condenser mic. And again on the EQ, I'll show you on the graph again what we've done on this one. So I'm just going to drop that music down a bit so we can hear what's going on. Let me go back to vMix a minute. Okay, so what you can see on the screen is the work that I've already done. So the low cut that we mentioned earlier on, if I take that off, for instance, we're now back to, you get, I mean, this particular mic isn't very bassy, I've got to be honest with you, but you can hear that boom, boom, boom at the bottom end if I take that low cut off. If I put it back on, then it cleans it up a bit, and as I said to you before, it gives you a little bit of headroom as well when you're recording, and you need that extra space in the final mix, okay? The mic doesn't sound bad, to be honest with you. I tried it a couple of weeks ago, couldn't get it to work, but I tried it yesterday and recorded a folk music session, and it worked reasonably well, and it sounds okay, because what I've done here, as you see on this particular graph here, I've taken out a couple of notches there. Let's find out what those frequencies did before I took them out. So we'll go to the low first of all, which is that one there, the blue one. Okay, you see that moving around there? So I think what I did there was, let's try, so that was where it was when it started, and that's where you find the fine kind of tuning of it. No, it isn't, is it? Hang on. Where are we? I'm doing the wrong microphones. No wonder it's not making any difference. Hang on a second. Sorry, guys. That's what you want. Right. So we're starting from scratch on this one. We're starting from scratch. Okay. So this is the microphone with no EQ on it. Absolutely no EQ whatsoever. It's just as it is, out of the box. Plug it in. XLR cable into the back of the mixer. Let's go to this one. Hang on. So yeah, microphone is here. It's got a couple of settings on it as well, by the way. So one of them is like a heart shape upside down. So that means that you're talking into the front of it. The other one is a figure of 8. I'm going to mute it while I throw the switch. 2 secs. Oh, yeah, you see? I don't know what's going on there, but there's a load of noise. And that's what I got before. It wasn't actually working. But you can hear that, guys, can you? Yeah. So that's now picking up my voice from, it's supposed to be a figure of 8 section there. Hang on a second. There's another setting on there as well, which is a round section. Hang on. And then we're back. Okay, so we're back. But you can hear that noise? That's coming from the microphone. It's not coming from the cable. The cable's brand new. But that noise, for some reason, Yeah, you can see why I didn't really stick with this, to be honest with you. Okay, I need to get rid of that rumble. What's that? And at the back of it, oh, what's that? There's another switch on there as well, which gives you a 10 decibel pad. So it drops the volume by 10%. It attenuates the volume by 10 dB, I beg your pardon, not 10%. So it takes off 10 dB of audio. That switch around the back there. There's another switch on the other side. So many switches on this thing. It's not even an on-off switch. Hang on a sec. So that sounds very strange, but it gives you more bass. So that gives you a low cut feature on the microphone itself. So you click that and it'll give you a bass reduction. It's almost like the going back to the NDI section here. It's going back to that. So it's almost like a low cut on the microphone itself. Let's put it back to normal. Okay, so this is where, see, again, you can see these bass notes coming in now, whereas before those bass notes weren't coming up on this particular display. Okay, do you see that? The blue notes down here, there's blue lines, are bass notes, and when I talk, you can hear that coming through the microphone. So if I click that 10, or that, not the 10, but the shelf, by the way, that takes the bass off on the microphone itself, then these frequencies now stop appearing, or not appear quite so often, only when they when you pop. Which is interesting. So that's doing the same job as this low cut. So we'll dial that low cut in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can hear that making a difference now. So we'll bring that into about there, I would say. Not too bad at all. And the mic doesn't sound too bad, does it? To be honest with you, it doesn't sound offensive in any way. It's a cheap microphone. But then again, so is the Tascam. So, you don't have to spend a fortune on microphones to get a decent sound. It's just the way you use them and how you're going to dial them in and, do the job that you want it to do. Sorry. Okay, let me pull that back a bit so you can see that. All right. Trying to get it square on so it's not quite so cockeyed. There we go. Okay. So there aren't any frequencies in there that are causing me any offense, to be honest with you. But we'll just, for S's and giggles, we'll try the high to mid, which is that one there. A high mid is the purple one there. For those of you watching in black and white, it's the one behind the pink. So what you do is you scan across there and find a frequency that might be doing your head in. So let's press the EQ on, okay? And then you can see it's turned yellow now. So what we do is we raise that up a bit, and then we can do a sweep. So you can already hear that that's a really annoying sound, but that's because it's got really high. It's almost like a whistle. So you go along here, you can hear that going like that sort of thing, yeah? So what that's doing is finding a frequency that you don't particularly like there, for instance, okay? So what you do then is literally drop it out, and that takes care of that noise, which is really good. And, to be honest with you, we were here at 0 anyway, but I'm just trying to show you this to give you an idea of how these... Whoops. Sorry. Took you for a spin there. Just trying to show you how these EQs work, on this particular mix of the Behringer X32. And this is a great way, like I say, of finding that annoying frequency. So, let's say, for instance, it was this top end up here, and that's like that whistle thing that you can hear that. So if that was in the microphone, that would be really annoying. So what you do is you find that frequency, and then you drop it out. So you drop it down to 0 or below if it's getting really, really annoying. And we haven't got any top end on this either. So what I'm going to do is put some sparkle on. So we'll go to the high, and we're going to increase the top end. As you can see there on the screen, that yellow bit there is your top end. Like I say, I'm increasing that for you. And, that's quite tinny. But it's not too bad. So, it was there at 0. If you put it down there, it sounds really muddy. But if you put it there, it gives you a little bit of sparkle on top of the microphone, so that you can you know, it's listening to your S's and T's, and it's pronouncing. You can pronounce every word, and yeah, that to me doesn't sound too bad. There's the compressor's quite strong on it, so I'm going to drop that down a bit. And if we go to the compressor window, you can see this now. If I do that, then obviously the compressor's working really hard, but then I have to do some gain to make it up. But I'm not going to do that because it sounds really awful. So I'm going to bring that back again. That gives you a threshold to when the compressor kicks in. And you can see those lines there, the red ones. So when I'm shouting or when it's trying to compress loud noises or whatever, then that's when that red kicks in. And you can adjust that according to how much compression you want to have on that particular microphone. Okay? So that's that section. There's a gate. Did I put a gate on it? Yeah, I think I did. So if I take the gate off, you can hear the hum of the mixing desk. You could probably hear a little bit of fan noise, but because this microphone's in this kind of curved area, it's got sponge on the inside. You see that? So these are spongy, and it's attached to this metal back. Okay, it's like a chrome back, and that cuts down. And let's say, for instance, you were in a very echoey room. You'd get one of these. They're reasonably priced. You can get them on Amazon and various other places. And you could put this in a studio. In fact, I had this in my voiceover booth for ages, to be honest with you, before I got some treatment on the walls and everything like that. So this would replicate you putting a duvet up on the wall or some soft furnishings or that kind of stuff. So it's really quite a useful baffle, if you like, and sound deadening. Which is kind of what we call it, really. And it's got some shapes in it as well, so it's not exactly flat. It's got those kind of shapes which bounce the sound off into other directions, but not into the microphone, which is good. So, I think that's all right, to be honest with you. It doesn't sound too bad, this particular microphone. It's a Studio Spares. I couldn't tell you which model it is because, like I say, my friend lent it to me. He said, try this and see how it sounds. I said, okay. But I tried it, and I got that kind of weird wind noise that you heard earlier for some reason. I don't know why that was happening, but I did get that on the first attempt. Just putting the volume up slightly to see what kind of to see what it does really. And actually turning the volume up as well, and I've got a compressor on the stream, so you're not getting blasted out by that particular sound, but it doesn't sound too bad. It's got a fairly low noise shelf. If you just drop everything, don't talk, you can just about hear the hum. So I'm going to put the gate back on, and that only lets through the voice when you speak, doesn't let through anything else when you don't speak. Do you know what I mean? So that saves a lot of editing, trust me. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that little cross section of kind of 3 microphones and how we dial in the EQ on the settings on the Behringer X32. Got to remember which microphone to unmute. There we go. That's better. Okay, cool. So that's our look at EQ. Just looking at that now, actually. Let's go back to that. And let's go to the NDI. So this is the microphone I use on a daily basis, and these are the settings that I use. Now, we're going back to that kind of finding out that rough kind of sound, that frequency that you don't particularly like. So, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to narrow the band and then do the sweep. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 11, 12, 12, 12. 11, 12, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So about there, it kind of starts to sound a bit boxy, a bit of bum, 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 like that sort of thing. But I am quite close to the microphone, so, that's understandable. So if I wanted to drop that out, again, I'd find that's wider. That's a more narrow way of finding it. Going higher and then going lower, dropping it out to 0 or dropping it out altogether. In actual fact, I don't like that sound, to be honest with you. Just trying to see if there's any other noise frequencies that it works on. But no, around about that figure there. And then I'm going to bring that back to 0 because I don't really need any attenuation on that. There we go. Okay. Cool. All right. So, yeah, any questions, drop them in the comments if you're watching this on the replay. Let me know how you get on with your settings on your microphones, and let me know which microphones you are using. Are you using condenser mics, for instance, like this, which need 48-volt phantom power? For those of you who don't know, a condenser mic needs 48 volts of phantom power. So up here on the desk, this particular section here, you can see there it says 48 volts. So if I turn that off, which I'm not going to do because that'll damage the microphone, always mute it before you push that on or off, okay? And here's the gain. So if I can turn the gain down, gain up again, 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That's quite sharp. But then again, we've also got a compressor on here, so that's why that drops out quite quickly when we go down to these kind of levels, okay? And you know, you've got a level meter here as well. So what you want to be aiming for is about the 12, -12, -9 area there. So not peaking. The minute you start peaking, you're going to start to distort in your mix. So you want to be aiming for that kind of thing. Just getting yourselves into the orange there on the mixer, not into the red, which is at the top there, and clipping. And it actually says clip there as well. See that? So that's pretty cool. Okay. Good. All right. Yeah, so like I say, any questions, do drop them in the comments or drop me a line at hello@loveaudio.co.uk, and I'll do my best to answer any questions that you may have. All right. So there we go. That's our insight into EQ on the Behringer X32. And, you know, similar things work on similar mixers. So, you know, don't think you have to go out and rush out and buy one of these things just to get your EQ dialed in. What you need to do is to look at your particular mixer and, you know, find out what the settings are and how they respond to how you want it to sound. And it's best to do it in headphones initially, obviously, because you don't want feedback from the speakers, and that kind of distorts what you're trying to do. If you're on a stage, by the way, and you know, you're front of house, by the way, and you know, you're mixing for a band or an artist or whatever, you can dial their EQ in remotely, obviously during a sound check or something like that, which is pretty cool. So I hope that helps. If you've enjoyed today's show, thank you very much. Give it a thumbs up, give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. That helps us, and it lets you know when we go live, especially if you click the bell icon underneath the subscribe thing on YouTube. And we normally go live at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday evening. So put that in your diary, and we'll see you next week. Thanks very much indeed for watching, and have a great week ahead. Speak to you soon. Take care.